Hi, welcome back to Max Tech University. Today we're going to be talking about 10 tips on how to identify phishing emails. With the increase in ransomware attacks, there's more phishing emails now than ever, and hackers are getting more skilled, which is making them tougher to identify. It's important to be able to identify them in order to protect yourself and your organization. So I'm going to go through a few examples of these emails and point out some common things to look out for in phishing emails. The first tip is to look at the email address closely. Look at the email address and not just the name that it's coming from. The email may say it's coming from a name of someone you know, but that doesn't mean that it really is. In fact, an email can be spoofed to show that the email address is correct, but it's not actually coming from that email address. This is an email that I got in my own inbox. It says it's coming from Sean, who is a tech here at Max Tech, but if you look at the email address that it's coming from, it doesn't have the same name as the company and is an unfamiliar email address. This is a clear sign not to click on the email. Pay attention to the exact lettering and numbers in the name because hackers can make them look very similar to the actual email address. Our second tip is don't click on anything. Instead of clicking, you can hover your mouse over links or photos. If there's text that come up over the photos that's strange or doesn't match the rest of the email, this can be an indicator of a phishing email. Links inside of the email may look like it's taking you to their website or a sign-in page, but if you hover over, you may see that it actually is not, like in this email. The Rackspace email, it's taking you to thefitdollar.com, which is not taking them to the actual website. Our third tip is to look at who they are addressing. Is it your name or does it say something like Dear Customer? If the title is vague or not personalized, it's important to investigate more. Which brings me to the fourth point, which is check the email signature. Most emails that come from legitimate senders from actual companies will have a whole signature underneath their emails, which would include their name, their title, some kind of contact information. Something to look out for might be something like this: Sincerely Online Email Team. Our next point is to check for spelling errors. Hackers aren't likely to check for spelling or care to be grammatically correct. Make sure that you read through the entire email to see if it makes sense. For example, in the second sentence in this email reads, "It has come to our attention that your account's information has need to be confirmed due to inactive customers, fraud, and spoof reports," which doesn't read very well, and they also spelled accounts wrong. Something else to notice in this email is the "Dear Valued Member" as the opening instead of personalizing the email. Our next tip is to watch out if the email is asking for personal information. If it's a legitimate email coming from a legitimate company, they're most likely not going to ask you for personal information in an email. In this email from Microsoft, it asks you to change your password, which you're likely to see in regular emails. Just make sure that you hover over those links to make sure that they're going to the right page and not to a link that you're not familiar with. Also, beware of the urgency coming from the email. A lot of the time, hackers want to induce panic so that the user will click on a link or send in their personal information. For example, in this email from LastPass, it warns you of suspicious activity. While this email looks very real, there's nothing personalized here. This is an email they could have sent to hundreds of users just to get you to click the link. Be very careful with these. Here's another example from Capital One. There's a few different things to look at here. First, look at the subject line that reads Credit One Breach Information. That should say Capital One. You can also see that the email it's coming from says Capital One, but the T and the I are switched, so it's misspelled and would be really easy to miss. You should also be aware of the links in this email. There's a link to click on to check your status, but they also provide another link to click if you didn't make this change. This may be an indicator of a phishing scam, so make sure that you hover over those links to make sure that they're real. Our next tip is to be careful of attachments. Hackers will try to get you with an attachment such as a Google Doc or an Excel spreadsheet. Look for some of the things that we talked about to ensure that it's safe to open. In this example, you can see that the address it's coming from is at protecteddownload.com, which is not a recognizable address. You can also see the file name is called Click Here and doesn't have an actual title to the document. Make sure that you're checking the little details like this, as well as who the email is coming from. Our ninth tip is to use a Link Protect email protection service. A good email protection service will intercept links in your incoming email and replace it with their link. Then they'll run your link through a third-party system and basically go through a link filter to make sure that it's safe to open. We use Barracuda ATP, and if you have any questions, you can contact Max Tech about getting that set up for your email. Our last tip is when in doubt, contact MaxTech if you have any problems identifying an email. We would rather look over an email that might be legitimate than risk a ransomware attack or any other threat to your business. Thanks for watching.